Welcome to America's Boating Club sail course offered by the Mid-Illini Sail and Power Squadron. Since this course is offered nationally, it has material that applies to any sailboat. I will try to give examples that apply locally as well as that apply on sailing bigger boats in more challenging areas like Lake Michigan and also the British Virgin Islands. I think of this course as providing explanations for why the on-the-water sailing mechanics work the way they do. Each week we'll have a PowerPoint presentation that you can complete when it fits your schedule. Additionally, we will have a live virtual session to go over the homework material for that week also. Let's get started. This course is broken into 4 parts. Part 1 is the boat, Part 2, the forces that act upon the boat, Part 3, techniques for sailing, and finally Part 4 is the boat operation. As we talk about the boat characteristics, we'll really break them down into 6 different chapters. Sailboat rigs, sailboat plans, boat types and hull design, standing rigging, sails, and running rigging. The first chapter is on sailboat rigs. Sailboat designers have been working for centuries to try and define the perfect sailboat design. What they're really trying to do is solve the problem of how to harness the wind to provide propulsion. Boats try to address the force on the wind on the boat at different points of sail, resulting in neutral helm or the ability to make progress towards their destination. Sailboat rigs are defined by the number of masts, their size, and the location on the deck. In addition, we also have some sail shape and distribution of the sails that help define our rigs. The first rig we're going to look at is the lateen rig. It's a very simple rig with a triangle sail that's suspended on a spar that's raised by a halyard up the mast. The place where we see this very typical would be the Sunfish class, which we have down at the CLSA fleet. The yard is really a spar that's more common on square rig boats where the spar runs parallel to the water. The yard can be constructed out of wood, steel, but more modern ones are like carbon fiber or aluminum. The next boat we're going to look at is the gaff rig catboat. This is a boat similar to the Prams or the Optimus that we have down at Clinton Lake. It's a single step mast, and the mast is way forward in the front of the boat. It has a large mainsail and a long boom attached to the mast. These boats are usually under 25 feet and have a very shallow draft. The lack of a jib detracts for their upwind performance. The next boat we're going to look at is the catboat. In this case, it's got a single mast located very far forward in the bow. An example of this would be the lasers that we have down in Clinton Lake. The advantages of this are they're easy to handle, they have fewer lines, and they have good downwind performance. But the disadvantage is that their upwind performance isn't quite as good as some of the other boats because there is no head sail. This is an example of a wishbone rigged catboat. In this case here, the boom is very high in the mast, and it allows the foot of the sail to conform to the shape of the wind in more of an airfoil shape. By having the boom up so high, it avoids accidentally hitting the crew during a tack or jibe. An example of this down in our area would be the non-such designed boats where they have the wishbone design. In this example, we have a masthead rigged sloop. Now the mast is stepped further back on the bow to allow room for the jib. It takes a lot more. There are a lot more lines on a sloop than other boats because you've got more sails to control. It allows some versatility in the sail selection. For example, on my boat down on my Capri, if the wind is blowing very light, I put up a much larger jib, and if the wind is blowing strong, I'll put a smaller jib up in doing that. It has very good upwind performance, and it's very popular with the modern boats. Here's another example of the sloop, and this one we're going to call a fractional rig sloop. And in this case, the forestay is attached below the head of the mast, and so it allows for more control of the sails and mast bend. The sloops provide an optimal upwind performance and allows sail choice and the amount of sail area for various conditions. Mast bend, because the forestay is attached in the middle of the boat, that it controls the mast bend, which then works well for upwind performance. The disadvantage of the sloops, again, are those that there are a lot more sails to control than on a catboat, and so it's a little more complex to operate. Here's an example of a cutter. It has a jib, a staysail, which are 2 foresails, and then a mainsail. The mast is stepped further back even more than the other boats, than a catboat, often up as much as 40% back from the front of the boat. The advantage of these is that the individual sails are a lot smaller, and making it easier for us to reduce sail when we want to do that. The disadvantage is the mast is stepped further back. It has more hardware to control more sails. You may need a bowsprit in order to spread the foresails apart. It has reduced windward performance in light wind because of the distortion that the sails cause as we're going upwind. And the staysail may interfere with the jib during tacks. Here's an example of a yawl rig. It's a 2-masted sailboat with a main mast and a mizzen mast, the mizzen being the one in the back. The mizzen mast is stepped behind the rudder post, and one of the advantages of that is that it can effectively balance the helm when you're going upwind. However, the mizzen is too small to really effectively replace the main in most conditions. The advantages of a yawl is that it allows you to balance the boat going upwind, but the disadvantage is that the small mizzen really doesn't offset the wind resistance that's created by the mast and the rigging. The ketch rig is another 2-masted sailboat. The mizzen mast is stepped ahead of the rudder post. The disadvantage of the mizzen is in the center of the cockpit, and the boom is over the helmsman. The mizzen can effectively balance the helm when sailing without a main in heavy air by moving the center of effort back. The mainmast is only slightly taller than the mizzen mast. The advantages are that you have really good performance with the mizzen and the jib. It has a large sail area with good reaching performance, and it has a larger sail area than the yawl. The disadvantage is that it has poor upwind performance and poor downwind performance because the mizzen blankets the main and disrupts the flow over it. When sailing wing and wing, you need to be careful of an accidental jibe, and there are 3 sails that you really have to manage. The mizzen is in the center of the cockpit, and the boom is over the helm. Here are the yawl and the ketch illustrated side by side, so you can sort of see the differences. And it's really the location of the mizzen sail. Now, it took me a long time to really identify or understand the difference between the two when I was looking at them on the water. And the easiest way for me to remember is that with the ketch being in front of the rudder post and in front of the skipper, if the sail should fall, the skipper could catch it. Here's an example of a schooner. And in this case, we've got multiple masts. The schooner carries 2 or more head sails. The rigging on it is very low and sturdy, but has very poor sailing upwind. The advantage, though, are that the rigs are low and sturdy. It was often used in the coastal traders and the long-distance freight carriers in the turn of the century. The disadvantage is it has very poor upwind performance. It has a low aspect ratio, which is the height of the height of the sail compared to the foot of the sail. And there's lots of wind resistance because of all the rigging that's necessary to do the number of sails as well as just managing them. Let's go over some of the terms that help us define our rigs to make sure that we can increase your nautical vocabulary. The old salts would say abaft, which is behind or aft of something. Amidships is near the middle of the boat. A bowsprit is a spar that extends forward from the bow and is used to attach the forestay or a jib or spinnaker. The clew is the corner of a triangular sail that's at the bottom back corner. The foot is the lower edge of the sail. A gaff is a spar that supports the upper side of a four-sided sail. A halyard is a line for hoisting the sails. The head sail is the sail that's flown ahead of the mast. The spar is any shaft or pole that's for the attachment of sail. And the tack is the lower forward corner of the mainsail or jib that's used to attach it. This concludes the section on sailboat rigs. Our next section, Chapter 2, will cover sail plans.